What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Steel Will Resident. This is a knife that was lent to me by Slicey Dicey, along with actually the Steel Will Piercer frame lock, so we're going to be taking a look at both of those knives today. Let's go ahead and get some quick measurements here on this knife so everybody knows kind of what we're working with in terms of size. This knife has an overall length just over 8 inches. I believe officially on Blade HQ it's 8.1 inches. That looks to be the case. Let's do the blade. The overall blade length seems to be just about exactly 3.5 inches, maybe a little bit more. However, the cutting edge is probably more like 3.25. So this kind of falls into that just right full-size knife range. I mean, it's about 8 inches, a little more than 8 inches. Also, it weighs about 3.2 ounces, 3.17, something like that. So it's very light. This is a full-size knife, but it falls right into a good EDC size and weight range. It's also, the shape of this is kind of, ZT0604 or Hinderer Firetac or Benchmade 710 kind of. Fantoni HBO1. It kind of has that quintessential knife look, and that's, this look may be kind of boring in the shadow of other knives that are available right now, but there's a reason that you see this kind of silhouette and design over and over again. It's because it works. You've got a classic drop point blade. You've got a nice, simple ergonomic handle. Also, this is a thumb stud deployer, and in this knife's case, it's very easy to deploy it either by using the standard thumb flick or the reverse finger flick. The phosphor bronze washers that it's running on are very smooth, so that's really cool. Before we go too far into that, let's go ahead and do some size comparisons here real quick. First up, of course, the Ontario Rat Model 1. You can see there, just a little bit smaller in terms of overall length. Manix 2, which is going to be about the same size at 8 inches. And for a third size comparison, we'll go ahead and use the Kershaw Blur. You can see there, Kershaw Blur coming in a little bit shorter. So, I got to be honest, I wasn't really aware of the rest of, or other knives in Steel Will's lineup. This knife is not made in the United States. It's made in China. But I got to say, having my eyes opened recently to what some Chinese companies are capable of in terms of fit and finish, this knife is no exception. You have very nice carbon fiber on the front side. It's one solid piece. You've got some nice blue standoffs that look very similar, if not identical, to the standoffs that you see on the upgraded version of the Benchmade Griptilian. So they look really nice. And then you've got a nice bead blasted titanium frame on the other side. Nothing is milled out. So the fact that it's coming to just over 3 ounces is pretty cool. I mean, if I had looked at this knife and somebody told me, it's all solid pieces, I would have guessed closer to 4 ounces, but this knife's coming in at 3, so that's nice. The blade is made out of D2 steel, which is great. You can see there, it says Resident F15 on the other side. The billboarding on the blade, both front and back, I would say is, it's not crazy. It doesn't really bother me. It would have been nice to see it smaller and more up here on the flat, but they didn't have a whole lot of room, so that's really not that big of a deal. No jimping back here. There's not really a place for your thumb to lock in, though I will say the ergonomics, as far as where your hands fall naturally, it does lock in pretty well, so no issue there. Though just, keep in mind, it is going to be slippery without any sort of jimping or texturing anywhere on this knife. It is going to be a little bit slippery. You have a nice deep carry pocket clip, though it does have one of those duck bills, so it's probably going to get caught on stuff. And the screws stick up a little bit. Coming in and out of my pocket, I really didn't have to fight it that much, but everybody's pockets are different, so you may have to fight it just a little bit. The knife did come centered, which is great. And it does have a nice fairly early solid lockup at about, the camera makes it look to be about 50%, but truthfully, I think it's about 40%. Very solid. No play up, down, left, or right. This is a very smooth action knife. It is not quite fall shut, or drop shut smooth, but it is very, very smooth. Kind of a hydraulic smooth, but also, you're able to flick it. It does have a nice medium detent. And there is a steel lock bar insert. You can see that screw there, which doubles as the over travel stop for the knife. So, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, this knife has all the features that you would expect from a modern EDC. And this knife it is a quintessential knife design, and it checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people in terms of, preferences. The funny thing is that the overall design is it's very simple. And I don't know, honestly, if this knife is ultra popular right now or if it's kind of flying under the radar. They run about $84.95 on Blade HQ, which I think is fair. It would have really blown my mind to see it at about $65, but I don't make knives, I don't know all those associated costs and things like that. You're in the realm of a little more expensive than the standard Spyderco Delica and a little less expensive than the ZDP Spyderco Delica, and those are made in Japan, and they're using FRN scales with countersunk steel liners, and then VG10s, but ZDP is way better. So you're kind of in that range, and this is also not made in the United States, but it has carbon fiber on the front, a titanium frame lock, 6AL4V titanium frame lock, and D2 steel, and the fit and finish is great. So, initially I was like, is $85? And then I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It's competition. Another really great knife that's in that price range is the S30V Blur, and that's it is using a better steel S30V, well, in some people's eyes, but it's an aluminum frame. Carbon fiber and titanium is definitely going to be more expensive on a handle than aluminum. So my camera does not like this knife. It does not want to focus on it. But when I think about it, I think $85 is pretty fair. It's got a lot of competition. There are a lot of other things to be considered in this price range. And a lot of people, once they get up here this high to $85, then they start, if I go a little bit more, maybe I can get a Spyderco. Maybe I want, a Mannix or a paramilitary too. They start to think about that. So this is kind of a tough price range because you're on the teetering point, going from good to potentially great. And it's like, do you want to spend $85 or do you want to save a little bit and spend $110, $120, $130 on, in some people's eyes, some of the greatest knives that exist? And so, for that reason, it's difficult to put my finger on exactly how I feel about the pricing. I think $85 is fair. It's just kind of an unfortunate range for this knife. Now, if you're all about this knife, you like the design, you like the blade shape, you like the materials, then I'll tell you this knife will make an excellent EDC. The way that the thumb studs are positioned on this knife, it's actually easier than the fire tack that I showed on this channel. And that's because of the angle. It's not really a thumb disc. You can see there, boy, my camera does not like this. It's not really a thumb disc. It's like a thumb notch thing that's shaped, I don't know, it's shaped like a coffin with some jimping on there. But the way that it's shaped is angled, perfectly towards your thumb when you go to deploy it. It's very comfortable and very easy to do, despite me missing that one. Very easy to do the reverse flick. That's awesome. And it's very solid. I only have one gripe about this knife. I don't know why I did this, but right here, it seems like there's almost play. And see, I can move this almost all the way left and right. It always comes back center, but usually when that happens, I think, okay, well, I've got some play in the lockout position. But there's no play whatsoever in the lockout position. Absolutely no play. So that's not really an issue. I can't really call that a problem because it's not rubbing and it's not causing an issue in lockout. It also doesn't rattle. There's nothing loose. So, again, that's a nitpick. There's really nothing to say there as far as, that being an issue with the knife. Some other cool things to point out here. This doesn't have a lanyard hole. It's got two little lanyard bars, which means technically you've got two positions you can carry a lanyard in. One down here closer to the butt of the knife and one slightly forward. I don't know why it would really matter all that much, but if you're very particular about your lanyard position, then you have that option with this knife. The pocket clip is four-way positionable. So right hand tip up, tip down, or left hand tip up, tip down is great. Now this is a right-handed frame lock though, so you lefties, if you are going to change the pocket clip over here, you are going to have that sort of awkward disengaging the frame lock from the unintended side. But it's doable. I'm not left-handed, you know, and if I had to do that, I definitely could. I have a harder time flicking. Let's see if I can flick it with my left hand. Yeah, I can do it. I'm a professional. Here we go. I'm joking, of course. That is much harder with your non-dominant hand. Anyways, overall styling, it looks really nice. It's very simple. If you like a more minimalist look with a little bit of flair like this carbon fiber here, this is a great knife, definitely. I don't know if this is a D-shaped pivot barrel. You've got Torx head screws on both sides, so disassembly, if this is not like red Loctited, which it might be. I think steel will has had a history of that. I'm not sure though. Then you know you might have to heat it up with a hairdryer and do that thing where you put a Torx bit in both sides and then you twist like that. If that's the case, that's unfortunate, but it might be what you have to do. Other than that though, it looks to be a pretty simple construction. You've got 3 body screws on each side, a couple pocket clip screws, and that's pretty much it. So as far as construction goes, I think it's great. As far as, you know, overall design, it's great. You know, I talked about it with the Chavez Ultramer. I said I used to have a problem with one solid side being carbon fiber or G10 or micarta because I just didn't trust the strength. And then I pulled the G10 scales off of my paramilitary 2 to put titanium ones on, and I just decided I'm going to test this G10 scale, and I tried to break it. I honestly thought that it would just snap. G10 does not do that. It's fibrous weave of I think it's baked and compressed fiberglass that's, you know, I don't know, it's been fortified in some way. I'm not an expert on that. But anyways, it's very, very tough. I could not break it. I held a lighter under it. It took forever to melt enough to actually want to start to unweave itself. It didn't ever really break, you know, it just started unwove itself. I think I went over this in the other video. My point is that G10 and carbon fiber and micarta are much stronger than I thought. Now, this doesn't mean that I would put this knife in a hard use situation. I think any sort of EDC medium duty task can be accomplished with this knife or any knife like it with a carbon fiber front or G10 front instead of titanium. I think it has more to do, of course, with tolerances and how well things fit so that they don't start to slip over time. So that's okay. I still, you know, I can't help the feeling of always wanting there to be a supportive liner underneath things like this, and I always prefer full titanium if I can get it. But, you know, when G10 is supported, or G10 or carbon fiber is supported by a liner, I just feel a little bit better about it. I just feel a little bit better about there being, you know, metal underneath the whatever the front scale is, you know. That is just how I think, and it's why I will never own any of Spyderco's FRN lightweight models that don't have a liner, like the Manix 2. I know how much people love that Manix 2 lightweight. I just can't do it. And that's just me. You don't have to, you know, I'm not saying that that those knives can't handle it. It's just why I won't own them. But I do trust this knife. I think the combination of a fairly thick carbon fiber front and titanium frame lock are going to serve this knife well in terms of durability. So last thing really on the list that I want to do is I want to do a little cut test. Now, I was feeling the edge, and it feels like maybe this knife's been used a little bit, but I want to give a demonstration of how this thing slices through paper. So we'll just do a couple of passes here real quick. That one's okay. There's a little bit of a roll there towards the edge. Feels okay. There's a little bit of a... Sorry, I had to stop the camera there. This knife has a little more resistance than you might think. It doesn't, you know, it's not a super thick stock to begin with, but it also doesn't have much room to drop down towards the cutting edge and get super duper thin. And I think the overall geometry just leaves it with, it's just thicker behind the edge than you would expect. Now, does it still cut? Absolutely. This knife, I think, has been used just a little teeny tiny bit, but it's certainly not stopping it from cutting through paper. So yeah, it's going to accomplish any normal EDC tasks. In conclusion, I think this is a great knife. I think that it's a fair price. I think that once you get up there in that price range, you're going to be considering some other things, and I think you should consider all of your options. But if this knife speaks to you aesthetically and you like the idea of a carbon fiber front, a nice pointy, long, narrow pointy drop point, that sort of thumb notch thing, and a very smooth action. I can't stress that enough. That's the best part about this knife is the smooth action running on phosphor bronze. Then this knife will be, it might be for you. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks for watching and have a great day.